Hey, welcome to your weekly astrology report for the first week of July 2019. We start off this week with a new moon solar eclipse in the sign of Cancer. So this is going to be exact Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on where you are in the world. And so the eclipses will happen twice a year when the North Node and the South Node line up with a lunation, so either a new moon or full moon. The North and South Node are in Cancer and Capricorn right now, and they're in a sign for 18 months at a time. And so for this 18-month period when the nodes are in Cancer and Capricorn, anytime that we have a new moon or a full moon within 15 degrees, so it's typically going to be in that sign, but it might be out of sign a little bit, it's going to literally create an eclipse out in the sky somewhere in the world, or visible from somewhere in the world. And it also creates, signifies this time of rapid change, of things coming in and moving out very quickly. It can sort of feel like things are happening with minimal effort or minimal input from you. And this doesn't mean don't do anything, but it means that things can kind of feel like they're coming in and just moving really fast. So this being in the axis of Capricorn and Cancer, so North Node is in the sign of Cancer, new moon solar eclipse is in the sign of Cancer. It's at 10 degrees of Cancer, and it's exact on Tuesday, the 2nd of July at 12:16 p.m. Pacific time. So what I would suggest is, number one, look at where it feels like things are shifting and changing a little bit. You can make this more personal for yourself if you look at where in your birth chart you have Cancer and Capricorn for this week, especially Cancer. So do you have any planets in Cancer? Do you have any planets aspecting by sign Cancer? So that would mean any of the cardinal signs, so Aries, Libra, Capricorn, and then of course Cancer itself. And then also, if you know your birth time, what house does Cancer occupy? And even the axis, what houses do Cancer and Capricorn occupy? And where those themes, it doesn't mean that something's like going to happen or not going to happen. I would look more at okay, what is it in your life around these themes that is present, that is active, that you're working on, or that's going on for you. So let's say someone has Cancer in the 5th house. 5th house is associated with children, creative projects, artistic things. It can also be associated with anything pleasurable, from going out dancing and being with friends. It's also can be associated with gambling as well. So that's a whole pile up of different symbols. So if you have Cancer in the 5th house and you have kids, I'm going to look at what that may mean for you, this particular eclipse, very differently from someone who has Cancer in the 5th house and they don't have kids, and they are in the corporate world, versus someone who's an artist. These are all going to be very different conversations that I would have with someone that has this. So so look at what's coming up for you around that. And also just, we can look at the significance of Cancerian energy in general, which is about nurturing. It's about holding space. It is also about emotional awareness, emotional sensitivity, the ability to really sense what's happening in the room, the energy of the room, and to be in a problematic way that can be being overly sensitive, or very subjective at the way that you look at things. So we'll follow the lunation cycle starting from there. So Monday and Tuesday we have the moon in Cancer, we have that lunation in Cancer on Tuesday. Wednesday and Thursday, the moon will be in Leo. So wonderful time, I think, for our 4th of July Independence Day, but anywhere in the world, you know, we're also going to have a moon in Leo. Moon in Leo is great for anything where you want to be appreciated, you want a sense of prestige, you want to be noticed. It's a great time just to simply surround yourself with people who appreciate you for who you are. Then Friday, Saturday, the moon is in Virgo. So Friday, Saturday, I would use those days more as like planning, discerning, kind of like getting stuff done and getting things organized. And then Sunday, the moon is in Libra. So I like the way I see the progression of this week is where there's a lot of heightened sensitivity earlier in the week, and then things sort of soften, and then by the time we get to the moon in Libra on Sunday, it's like, like I just kind of want to relax and maybe spend some time socializing or going out with friends. Other things that are happening this week are Mercury will station retrograde on Sunday. So I think this is interesting because Mercury is stationing retrograde in an eclipse cycle, in an eclipse season, and it's also stationing retrograde with very close to Mars. So this week Mars will move from Cancer into Leo, and it'll be really close to Mercury. So what's going to happen is Mercury and Mars are going to meet. They're going to conjunct next week. And so this could look like passionate Mars, thoughts Mercury, like passionate conversations, really feeling amped up, really like thinking about things. It can also just mean like agitation as well, like mental unrest, mental agitation, being annoyed. It can look like wanting to draw boundaries with your words, wanting to assert yourself, or like if you've been wanting to assert yourself in some way for some time, maybe that's when this comes out. Definitely like a marrying of passion and assertiveness and courage, Mars things, and words, thought process, communication, intellect. And this is happening initially in the sign of Leo. Mercury will retrograde back into the sign of Cancer, or it will appear to move back that way. But this is happening in the fiery and passionate sign of Leo. And that draws us, because Leo is ruled by the sun, that puts us back to the eclipse. So it's kind of interesting how we're in this eclipse season of change and transition. And then Mercury is about rethinking things, and it's linked with a planet that's about high passion and high desire. So again, I think another reason why this week may feel like sort of intense, especially in the beginning when Mars moves into Leo. And yeah, so that's that. I have 3 tips for you. So tip number 1 is to look for openings. And so look for where things are growing, things are emerging. Where is there an opening for you to try something new? So part of this is working with the eclipse energy, and then the other part of this is that Mars, by moving into Leo, will start the process of a square, building a square to Uranus. And so this will be exact, I think it's next week. So I'll talk about it more then, but Uranus-Mars is about reinvigorating something in your life. It's about change. So we have these double meanings of like change and transition with the eclipses and the Mars-Uranus. So that's tip number 1, is to look for openings. Tip number 2, to ask yourself what is outdated in your life. What's in need of a little bit of a sprucing up, a little bit of a change, and where are you being called to change something? It doesn't mean necessarily throwing it out or throwing it away, but where do things feel like old or done, or like you've been doing the same thing and it just is kind of like you're phoning it in now, and where it's time to change that up a little bit. tip number 3, these are all about change. Tip number 3 is to notice how your life is changing from a more movie camera view. So if you were to look at the facts of your life, what's actually happening now, how are things changing or not changing? And how would someone describe the story of your life versus how you actually feel about it, like what is actually literally happening. So that's tip number 3, to look for how things are actually working for you and changing. And I like that because I think that gives us a little bit of space from the high intensity, the high emotionality of a Cancerian new moon, Cancerian eclipse. And then, so I pulled a card on Instagram, but I'm going to pull another one for us. This card just popped out, so I think this is the one. It's kind of funny. So I pulled the Queen of Cups right there. Such a beautiful card. So this card is like the epitome of Cancerian energy, and and it's about emotional sensitivity. It's about heightened awareness of emotions. It can also be a symbol to watch out for being ruled by your emotions. I did pull this upright, so I'm taking it more as an encouragement to be really curious about your emotions and where they're guiding you versus being overly emotional. So I'm curious how that resonates with you and what you feel when you look at this card. All right. That's all for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. I would love to hear from you and hear how you're doing so far. If you're watching this midweek, how it is that you're feeling. If you are interested in getting a session with me, you can find out more about that on neofeminineastrology.com. And I am wishing you a wonderful week ahead.